I'm Troy Wicks, the Associate Director of Coatings for North America.
Eli, I am the technical sales rep for the Pacific Northwest for SPARTACOTE and L&M.
If you're not hearing or seeing us, please put it in the chat. Actually, either way, put it in the chat. If you're hearing us and seeing us, that's good. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves, and that's bad.
Do they see a box?
Yeah, we see a box. We're good.
Oh, no, they don't.
I hope not.
Run through a little bit of what we're doing today.
Yeah, so we wanted to go over some of the more problems that you're going to run into in the field. We understand that you're not always going to get a great, perfect concrete slab every time that somebody needs a coating. And so we're going to talk about how do you go over self-levelers? What's the proper way to do it? What needs to be underneath the leveler? What do you put on top of the leveler? And where can you put it? We're going to talk about going over tile. So a question that we field really often.
A lot.
You know, sometimes you get into a bathroom that's just really dirty and they want to that. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to go over metallics again because everybody likes metallics. So we're going to show you a couple cool metallic techniques again.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've had people. We basically ask people to send in questions. What do you want to see? What do you want to talk about? And really, everything we're going to do today was driven from that. I'm going to throw out the caveat right now, Dean and Curtis and Tech Service guys. Not everything we're talking about today is a warranted system. These were questions that were brought to us. We'll discuss them and some of the ways they've been solved out in the field. We're going to tell you it's not warranted. There are some things that we're going to say, well, it'll probably work. We've seen it work. We've had guys do it. It's not our preferred way. We're always going to tell you, go back to the data. That's really what we're shooting for every single time. That's the guarantee that you're going to have a good project. And we'll always come back to that. We always want to have that discussion and make sure that issues, shipping issues, crew issues, all kinds of things pop up and guys do things out in the field. Warranted installations are as per our data sheets. They're all online. They're up and it's not on that data sheet. If it's not addressed in that data sheet, just remember that you need to talk to your local rep if you've got to do something outside of that and discuss whether or not that's actually going to be a warranted installation or if you're going to need to do something different there. So,
and we were also going to go over, we have a couple of these techniques that we're looking to find people that want to help us do some field trials on, and we'll talk about that as we go through those.
Yeah, run it in the lab and said, hey, this looks like it's going to work. Let's get it out in the field and try it. Let's see if we can see how that turns out in the field. So, like I said, we kind of had on Facebook, we talked a little bit about going over VC tile. Barrier can go over VC tile. And since we can go on top of the moisture vapor barrier with SPARTACOTE, is that an approved system? Well, no, we've never really tested that as an approved system. Have guys done it in the field? Yeah, we've seen guys do it in the field. They've extrapolated they can do that. But honestly, we prefer that you get back down to tile. Sometimes you're going to run into an asbestos tile out in the field types of installations. Possible. So we're always concerned about getting profile on things. So when you're talking about going over VC tile or sheet goods, I had a guy send me some pictures of a sheet good project where they'd cut away some of those sheet goods that have come off, and they went ahead, sheet goods out, and get back down to concrete.
If they have questions to follow up with this training.
Sure. So you can touch base with any of us on Facebook. You can send an email to contact us on our LATICRETE website. At the end of this, I won't be able to do it on here. On a regular Zoom meeting, I can put up my contact information, but Facebook's a great way to do it. LinkedIn, you can touch base with us on Instagram, and we'll get you those local reps. And you can always chat with our tech service on the little chat window, and you go to our website and put in you're looking for SPARTACOTE information or that local rep, and they'll get you hooked up with the local rep that way. So Eli, starting off, let's start off. So what do we want to start off with?
We're going to start off talking about levelers. It's something that comes up really often. People go in to do an install and the floor is completely hammered and it may not be a suitable substrate to give the customer the look that they're wanting.
Right. Look at our TDS 423. There it is. 423. Moisture mitigation on the concrete surface, a well-profiled concrete surface, 3 to 5. apply that. What's really cool is we have Vapor Band Primer ER, which is basically a self primer for the leveling products. So you're not going to have to do the sand broadcast.
And it's dry in 3 hours, which is always fantastic.
Yeah, but who doesn't want to be ready to go in 3 hours? I mean, that's it. So you'll put your leveler over the top of that, and then we want you to actually reprofile that, give it the right time to dry, follow the data sheet, the TDS data sheet, put down the moisture membrane again. So you could use Vapor Band ER primer, you could use Vapor Band ER, you could use MVB if you had time for it. So so that's one of the first things we're going to talk about today.
One of the things I see often when people go to prep the surface of the leveler to put coating back down is they don't get that polymer cap off of the leveler all the way. A great way to test to see if you've prepped well enough is pour some water on the floor. You'll notice that if you haven't prepped it well enough, if the water's beating up on it, most likely your coating is going to beat up on the surface too and not be able to penetrate and bond.
Yeah, makes sense. So Eli's getting the primer mixed together. We're gonna put it down as per the data sheet. Okay, we may miss something on the data sheet, so please refer to the data sheet before you do any of the installations. I know lots of guys out in the field don't take that time, but honestly, there's some really grains of salt, grains of knowledge on those that can really pay off, especially when you're doing projects out in the field and you're using something for the first time. I know lots of guys don't carry mill gauges. One of the things that I try and do, I was on a project last week where we were talking about how thick the process was going down, what they really needed, how much product we had. If you don't have a mill gauge, measure off some areas, put blue tape on the walls so that you actually the installers, especially have new installers out there, to really help them gauge how far they're getting along with the project and really where they're at. So it makes a big difference, making sure that you have those areas marked off. So, ready to go, Eli?
Plus. And to touch on what Troy was talking about, there's a lot of great solutions and information on those data sheets, and I still reread them pretty often, and there's also lots of information on the containers of all our products, and I strongly advise to read those before you start mixing any of them. So I'm just doing a ribbon and roll method with this. I want people to let this dry before installing SPARTACOTE over top of it.
Really, like I said, once again, we're always going to tell you to refer back to the data sheets. It's important that you know those before you actually get started on them. Steve, we went black. We're back. So a lot of those I'll ask you to refer to the data sheet. But on the top of the levelers, the urethane primer dries pretty quickly, and so sometimes it's a matter of how much humidity you have is where you'll find that your dry times are at. And I'm one of the guys that will really want you to leave the product pretty liberal on the surface, because the goal of this is really to lock up the top of the product. When it comes to levelers and doing coatings, where we find the failures are not in the bond between the leveler and the primer, or the leveler and the SPARTACOTE or the coating. It's within the levelers themselves. The levelers themselves will actually debond from each other. And so if you run a rolling load over the top of it, you'll find that they'll actually debond from just below the mechanical bond. So Steve's working on the camera slightly. It's not going to want to work. Of course. Is it off? We shall plug it in.
One of the things I want to mention too, because we had talked about wanting to do some field trials with some of these methods. Please talk to your local rep before you go out and start field trialing some of this stuff on your own. We want to be involved in that process, and and help out and advise as needed through it.
Well, yeah, and you'll find also that, we're going to, we value your feedback. And so we really want, we want your data on how the field trial preparation, all that type of stuff. We're going to need all that type of information. So always be prepared for that. And that helps us actually build the data sheet that hopefully down the road we'll be able to utilize that as oh, there we go. Utilize that as the product for use. So thank you for that. Any questions on what we did as far as the self-levelers, or currently what we're doing for self-levelers? Like I said, once again, the warranted installation is a moisture vapor barrier with the Level X, NXT Level X Plus, over the top of it, DL if you wanted to, and then a moisture vapor barrier over the surface of that. We're just trying to keep moisture from getting trapped in between and on top of the leveler itself. So,
Troy, what do we have right here?
254.
254. So those, I'm sure anybody who's worked with tile products is familiar with 254. And so we're going to show you a method to apply SPARTACOE over tile using 254.
Yep. So we do run into this quite a bit, and if you're one of our elite installers and you're watching right now, this is one of the reasons we really looked at the 254 is because it's in stock. It's in stock at Dow and Emser and a lot of other places it's in stock. And so for us, what we've tried to do is come up with products that we have that do great work for us on the tile side, and that you guys are used to using and is readily available. We'd love to see DuraCrete going down over the top of this. We use DuraCrete a lot from our L&M line underneath a lot of our coatings, a lot of our urethane cements, our moisture vapor barriers, a lot of that. But 254 is something that is more readily available throughout the U.S., well, throughout the world.
Right.
And so a lot of times we're running into tile, and 254 works great. I mean, it's the bomb. So this particular sample we have here, let me just turn it around. So what we're actually looking at, so this is what we started with, and then deprofiled it. So basically we sanded the gloss off of it, did the 254 over the surface of it, and then sanded the 254. I've had a couple of instances where this has a nice bite to it. I've had good tile installers go out and just glass the surface off, especially if you're building it up a little bit. You'll just glass the surface off. So we want to make sure you get back to that CSP of 2 prior to doing your installation.
One of the important things I want to touch on too, and always refer to the tech data sheet, and this is going to be TDS 450. If you don't have it, you can't find it, talk to one of your reps. We can get it to you. After we deglossed it, profiled it, we also ran the citrus degreaser from an L&M line and prior. So sometimes, you can get scum buildup, you can get all kinds of stuff in the grout. That way you get all of that clean so there are no bond breakers present when you put the platinum down.
You're also going to find we really got into the going over tile market through our urethane cement line in back of house and kitchens and bathrooms. And really, so what we're not showing today is the urethane cement. But same thing, you'd come in with like Citrix, our cleaner out of the L&M line, degrease and remove all that off of the floor. And once that's been degreased, then you come in, profile it, and then do our urethane cement systems over the top of that. That's worked out super, super well for back of the house kitchens and food prep areas, a lot of that type of stuff. Oh, it's in my backpack, sorry. Forgot to plug in the laptop. This has been one of those mornings, you know how they say set everything up before you get started? They mean that, and they're serious about it. So what we're gonna do now is we basically have a board that we have 254 on. It was a 1 foot by 1 foot tile board. You're gonna see a little bit of the tile lines on it. Go ahead and switch to that other camera, will you? And so basically this has 254 put over the top of it. The darkening that you're seeing right there is really, that's just coming from the tile lines. This had fairly deep grout lines to it. So you see a little bit of a shadowing from that. And this has been sanded again. And what we're gonna do over the top of this is a chip system. So Eli's mixing up the base coat right now. So if this was a bathroom setting, we would have come in, or a kitchen setting, come in once again, use a Citrix to remove all the oils and greases, get the floor very, very clean, then sand it, get a profile on top of it. We're doing a lot on the quarry tiles, and in doing them on the quarry tiles, we're finding a grind on it works really, really well. And it's nice if you can actually get the grind down to the top of the joints. You'll find that it's much easier to go over it. You're not going to waste a lot of material in those joints. But if you have to, this is a great installation over the top of an existing tile. So once this is done and it's dried, I should be wearing gloves. So we basically would just go back over the top of it with our polyaspartic pigmented. And what are we using today? This XPL?
That is pure.
And you're going to, once you get to this point, you're basically going to utilize all the same methodology that you would doing your regular installations. And I like to use the chips over it. We did these boards last night, and we didn't have a mechanical profiler to smooth it out a little bit. So I see a little bit of the grout lines sneaking through. But when we throw the chip on top of it, you won't see any of that. It eats it right up.
One thing to be aware of when you're prepping this is look at what size chip you're using. If you're using the microchip or the 16-inch chip, it's not going to hide as much as the 1/4-inch chip. So
Yeah.
be aware of that on your prep.
And also you'll see neither Eli or I are great at troweling 254 because I see some lines in there. So Eli, I'm going to try and keep this all on here so we don't have to chase too much of it around. But like I said, once you've applied the chips, and like the larger size chips will hide any of the nuances to it. I have seen systems where they've actually left a holograph of the tiles behind it because they wanted that look. We work with a company that does a lot of redos on bathrooms, and that's a look they do a lot. They basically will not try and fill the control joints or the expansion joints or the grout lines at all, and leave the tile look. There we go. So basically that is a 254 installation. So let's walk back through the process. If moisture is not an issue, let me back up just a little bit more. If moisture is not an issue, this works great. You're going to profile, clean, get all the grease, oil, whatever may be on the floor. Floor waxes. That's one of the things that bite a lot of contractors when they're going over tiles. They don't know that it's been waxed, and they come in and they do a quick clean over the top of it. They think they've got it really clean. But what they've done is they've cleaned problems with wax on the floor and resisting your coatings. So once you've done that, got all the grease off of it, then you reprofile, and then you put down the 254. I want to say that it's like a 24-hour time before it's all dry. The deeper the grout lines, the more you want to let that cure out. I've had people ask me, well, 254 comes in a rapid. If we do that, can we get on it faster? What we're really trying to build up is we're building up the bond strength of it. So no, you're not going to really get on it that much faster. So you just want to know that that's not something that you're going to get past or be able to do quicker. The next installation we're going to do here, we're going to look at if we have a moisture issue. And let's say we have a moisture issue and you have tile, you have the grout joints and stuff, and you want to get something over the top of it, and you've profiled half this, or did you profile?
I profiled the whole thing.
Okay. So what Eli's putting down here is another tile system, and we've done this quite a few times where we want to actually, oh, you're good, where you actually want to go back over the top of this. This is going to be a metallic floor, you already have tile in it currently, and we're going to bury it in a black vapor band ER. So what it's going to do is you're going to use this to level out your lines. This probably works. It'll work fine with the roller. Maybe you're using a notch trowel would give you a notch squeegee would probably give you a little bit better installation because you could leave it thicker.
And that roller will pull some of it out of the grout lines.
And I've literally done this where we have just flooded it and just let it lay out on its own. And that's where the notch squeegees come in really, really nice, where you can either use a notch squeegee or a magic trowel. Magic trowels work really well too. And what this will do is it's basically going to give you a nice smooth background once he gets this rolled out.
Some point today.
And once again, we're using our vapor band ER because we want that quicker dry time to it.
Hey, Troy, we have a question.
Yeah.
Can we address any surface prep needed over the tile and or 254? Question mark.
So surface prep. So over the tile, a lot of times. Go ahead and switch over. Over the tile, a lot of times what we're looking for you to do is degloss it. So I have guys that will use sanding screens and a floor buffer to remove that. We have guys that will come in with a grinder and do a light grind on top of it. Most of the time, the sanding works pretty well, and the grinder works fine, but it's loud. And I mean, running a grinder over tile, it can be really annoying, especially when it hits the grout lines. So that's one of the things you want to think about is preparing. So really, if you hit it with a sander and you just get rid of the glaze that's on top of it, think about if you're doing a recoat or if you have a shiny floor and you want to deglaze that floor. That's one of the things where you just take a little bit of the gloss off of it. And then same thing with the 254. Like I said, we didn't have a mechanical machine, so we had to hand do this morning. If you've got like a floor buffer that you can screen the 254 with, it turns out really, really nice. It'll help get rid of any of those lines because it'll profile it super nice. So that's one of the things that I will use a lot when we're doing the floor preparation stuff.
Have you tried liquid etching cream?
So we've looked at different etchings, and there's a couple of them out there that we've looked at, Liquid Shot Blast, and a couple others. We generally find that the etching, trying to get rid of the acid from those, the cleanup from those, whether they work or not, let's step back from that. But applying those type of materials, getting rid of the wash off of that in a lot of municipalities is an issue. So we've looked at those, but generally what happens is they attack the grout so much harder than the tile that we end up with with deeper grout lines. So mechanicals is the better way of going. Staying away from the liquids will be helpful. All right, so Eli, what do we got going on here next?
We're going to do some metallic.
We're going to do metallic?
We're going to do metallic.
All right. So last time you guys had asked a lot about the metallics and doing some different mixes and stuff like that. I had people that are on here now that weren't able to see the metallics last time and wanted to see some of the mixed pours and stuff that we did. When we talk about the metallics, like I said before, they're a huge thing right now on countertops and patios and garages, man caves, businesses. I don't know if any of you have seen the floor that Jeff Holtz and Patrick Paladin did down in Southern California with a new contractor at, I believe it was Anthony's Restaurant. If you haven't seen that, go to the YouTube channel and take a look at that, or not YouTube, but Facebook, and take a look at that. Really, really a beautiful installation. Has a couple of circles in it, or kind of point type yin yang look to it. Turned out great. They did a low gloss XPL with diamond top on it. They added the diamond top too, because there's lots of chairs, lots of foot traffic, a lot of movement. They really wanted to protect that look. So that's one of the installations you might want to take a look at. It's pretty cool. So are you going to start off with two colors?
So I'm doing copper and coffee, which are really similar colors, but it just gives you a little bit more marbling and accent.
Yeah. So like I know he's farther away from the mic. So we're doing copper and coffee. Those are pretty popular colors. Everybody likes that kind of walnut look. And so we're going to do a 2-color mix here. There's a lot of different ways you can actually apply these to the floor. We're going to apply them as 2 different mixes. Some people will apply, they'll do maybe 80% one color and then put 20% of another color in the same mix. You get some kind of different hues out of that. That really pays off when you broadcast like acetone or xylene into it. That's when you really see the 2 colors pop away from each other when you do them in a single mix. When you do a 2 mix like this, what you're going to see Eli applying, basically he's going to lay out one and then lay out the other. The trick is not to overwork the products at the same time so you end up with basically a 3rd color. What do you got going there?
So this is coffee. And I'm just moving around with the roller, trying to get it everywhere. You're not trying to roll this super smooth and flat like you would a colored base coat. We are doing this with our XPL product. That is a newer polyaspartic that we have that has a longer working time and allows us to do metallics with it. For those of you who worked with our Pure product before, you know that that's not a great candidate for doing metallics. It doesn't have a lot of movement to it.
What if you bought it? What if you cut it a lot with something? Do you ever want to use Pure?
I don't. I've tried it and I really don't recommend.
Yeah.
Even with 10 or 15% solvent, it stops moving too fast.
Yeah, if you have a VOC issue, make sure XPL is really your animal of choice if you want to close a faster drying window. If the drying window isn't necessarily something you're focusing on, you can go with an epoxy. You will find though the epoxies, and I was talking with a customer this morning that did an epoxy job, and he really liked the look when they started out, but as time went by, it muted out so much that he lost a lot of the violent movement that the customer was kind of wanting. And so that's one of the things that we talk about is in these installations is if you're wanting a lot of movement like you see here to stay, you're going to want to stay with the polyaspartic line because you're going to find that if you go with an epoxy, it's going to bleed out and really cloud down over time.
And timing is so much more important with the epoxies. It's definitely devastating when you walk away from a floor and it's exactly what you wanted, and then you come back and you're like, oh,
It's okay. Yeah,
it's gone.
And we'll always tell you too, if you're going to do garage floors or any floor that has slope, please make a sample on that floor. Too many times guys will make samples in their shop, they sell that, and then when you actually do the installation on the floor, you end up with run lines to it, and that may not be exactly what your customer is looking for.
Usually the most neglected part of a metallic.
The corners?
The edges and the corners.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see these colors are really kind of from the same color palette. I put the darker color down first, put the lighter on top, and I'm just going to let this sit for a minute before I go back over it. That way I don't just combine the colors together into kind of one color. I want a little bit of separation so you have more of that marbled modeling look.
So if I wanted more modeling, would I ever be able to mix up colors and just let them dwell in the cans separate for a while and then apply them?
Absolutely. The longer you wait to put your other colors down, the more they're going to stay separated from the base color.
So you put down 2 colors here, and you haven't done anything with that secondary color. Are you going to touch it or just leaving it?
On this one, actually, I'm just going to spray it down with some solvent.
What are you using?
So this is just acetone.
Okay.
You can use acetone or xylene. You get a little bit different effects out of both of them. I'm just applying this in a solvent-safe sprayer.
So acetone will generally give you the circle moon crater look. If you are in a state that allows you to use xylene, you'll find that xylene gives you more Grand Canyon, longer, elongated craters. Seems to be the oil in it will give you things. And you're seeing different droplet sizes give you a different look. If you do this too soon, I've seen guys out here doing this too soon, and you go, wow, I love this look. And then in 10 minutes, it's all kind of collapsed back in. So you want to make sure that if this is the look you're looking for, you want to make sure that you've learned by working with this at the shop the right timing to actually apply this so that this stays.
And then be aware that the timing with a polyaspartic, being that it draws moisture from the air to cure, if it's a completely different day with different weather, your timing may be different, slower or faster depending on the humidity.
Correct.
As you can see, a lot of what I put in is already washed out.
Yep. Xylene will give you a longer lasting effect. But like I said, a lot of states you can't use that, and you'll want to be aware of a really cool look. And if you're doing somebody's man cave, you just basically poisoned their house. Especially if you're doing this in a business, it's in a strip mall. You want to make sure and cover all those bases.
Shared walls between adjacent businesses,
Yeah.
with customers in it.
Yeah.
Not that
Yeah.
I'm speaking from any experience.
So we're going to. No, it's this one. No, I guess it's that one. So we're going to pull this one out of here. We're going to pull this one out, and then I want to come back to the vapor band that we did over the top of the tile. Oh, now we moved it. So you can see how this is basically it's gotten rid of all of our grout joint lines. This is going to dry in probably 4 hours. Let's say 4 hours, and this will be a great base for going over a metallic. If we were going to be doing a chip floor or something like that, I probably wouldn't use my fill as my broadcast, only because it's going to take a lot of broadcast media, chip or quartz, to fill this in. So I would go with the Vapor Band ER, let it dry in like 4 hours, then do a clear top coat over it, or do a colored coat over it. Doesn't really make any difference. You color one side or the other and broadcast into it. And that way you're not going to waste a lot of media using it here. To some of the questions that people have sent in. One of the questions that I had is, can you go over wood? So we don't want wood as a substrate for polyaspartics. That's not the substrate that we focus on. We do have areas where we have used products out of our tile side, our vapor band, that we've used over the top of wood, and then that have been polyaspartics over the top of that. Those have been very specific use areas, grow rooms, and areas where we really knew what the whole process was, and we're in control of everything on that project, especially from the standpoint of movement in the floor. That's what's always going to get you when you're talking about movement on the floor. Now, that is not a warranted system. There's no warranty on that. Okay, no warranty on that. We know it works, but the problem is there's way too many variables for us to warranty it, because if moisture coming up underneath the floor, making the wood swell, there's all kinds of things that can happen that have nothing to do with HydroBand or the SPARTACOTE system. So you can certainly talk about that with your local rep. They can talk to their RSM, talk with tech service. Like I said, we do have some of those systems out there, and they met the criteria that we were looking for, and we were okay with them. But there's certainly not something that we're just going to say, hey, yeah, go do it all day long. That's just fine. That's not an approved installation. It's not a warranted installation. It's certainly one we can talk about. One of the other things is people say, hey, can I use this in showers? Can I put SPARTACOTE in showers? You certainly can. You've seen a couple installations here that would be great in a shower. So if you had a tile shower, you could certainly prep that shower and do 254 over the surface of it. You could do a chip or a quartz broadcast. I will tell you that 100% of the showers that I've been involved in and that I've ever seen pictures of generally are always quartz systems, because of the traction that you get out of that. You always want to make sure that that is prime on your mind. Please do not, if you're going to get in and do shower systems with SPARTACOTE, make sure that you discuss traction. It is so important to make sure that you discuss that area of it. We've done different installations that have showers that actually come back out onto the floor in retirement homes. And we have different gradation of traction additives as you move into the shower. So there's a lot of things that you can do in the SPARTACOTE by adding your traction additives at different amounts and different sizes as you get closer to really where the water is at versus the rest of the room where they're probably just cleaning with a Swiffer or something easier. So yes, on the shower systems, this is never going to be considered your primary water barrier. So you can't just go build a shower out of concrete and then put this on top of it and consider it waterproof. SPARTACOTE is never a waterproofer. If you get a crack in the concrete and it comes through the SPARTACOTE, you have water coming through it. So you need to have something else as your primary water barrier, not relying on the SPARTACOTE for that. So that can always be something to discuss. Outdoor patios and decks, wood. Once again, it's always funny how people ask questions. It's the same question, but they phrase it differently, thinking they're going to get a different answer. For sure, wood we don't want to go over, and more for sure, we don't want to go over wood exterior and ever. Wood shrinks and grows. I mean, how many guys here have had to redo your deck or stain your deck every year? All the stuff that happens to that, a lot of that's coming from below, moisture coming from below. So if you apply a coating over the top of that that's not elastomeric, it's not designed for that system, you're going to have a failure. Now, concrete decks, all day long. We do a lot of exterior patios, a lot of exterior lanais, walkways, that type of stuff. Sure, that's fine. If you need waterproofing, you can use our waterproof membrane over the surface of that prior to doing your decorative look to it. So we have opportunities on top of concrete, but anytime it comes to wood, no matter how you ask the question, I'm always going to tell you the same thing. No, please don't do it. You're not going to be happy. Even if it looks great, you sand it and everything's perfect the day you're done, you're probably not going to be happy long-term, and neither will your customer be. We do a lot of those. Matter of fact, we're working on one up in Whistler right now. It's going to be
there's too much on the field right now.
so it's important that you actually do the quart systems are great because of the traction. They're great because they're color fast. You're not going to lose color over time. So you're going to have the same look when you install it as you've always had. So generally when we're doing pool decks, we're always looking at some type of quart system. Now the caveat is always this: they're going to be hot. So the only time you're out by your pool is when the sun's out. It's going to be 89 or something here today. And the reality of it is, if you walk out onto any coated surface, I don't care if it's acrylic, MMA, epoxy, not that you put epoxy outside, any of those coated surfaces, even a cheap acrylic in a bare foot in the sun, it's going to be hot, hot, hot. So please bear in mind that if you're going to be doing systems like that, that you have those conversations with the customers, because you don't want to do a really beautiful system and then they go to use their pool for the first time and their kids all burn their feet walking around on this really hot surface. So bear in mind that is something that we do. A lot of resorts use it because it is a good traction. It's easy to clean, but the functionality of it is it can be hot. So always something to think about. I have asked people have asked about doing the quartz inside the pools. It's not Pebble Tech. It looks kind of like Pebble Tech, but it's not Pebble Tech. It's not. We're not designed for submersion. So no, please don't use it below the water line in the pools. And like I said, a lot of people ask how to do it, how to accomplish it. So we're going to roll a tray out here, and we'll show you how we do that mix, how it's done. One of the things that you got to play around with is your container sizes. So if you're doing, when you go to do a pour, you're gonna probably have maybe half a gallon of black in here, kind of as considered a tapestry or a background, and then you're gonna pour your other colors around that. And really, if you think about in your mind what's happening, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get those colors to pretty much stay in their own little zone within the pail. If you get out of balance with that, or if you just pour them in really quick, what happens is you're not going to get that same look when you go to pour it out on the floor. You're going to end up with, you're going to still get a look. You may not get the same look over and over. So I'm always really cautioning you to play with these at the shop, realize that this is really something that's super unique every time. And honestly, if you can make 4 pails or make 4 pours out of out of a single instead of doing a bunch of different pour, or instead of doing one big one. It looks way cooler if you can divide into 3 or 4 pails, these colors and this mix. So trying to break it up is usually always going to be a better look. Media, and that's what I'm going to call the black portion of this, is media. We don't want so much of that you lose the background or the flavor of it. There's a point in time where you've gotten too much of it, and that's a problem. But the real goal is to try and just keep the colors in different zones. And if you think about them being in the pail in those zones, and try not to let them mix too much. I see some of it coming to the surface already. Sometimes we've used funnels. You can mix this in there too. Let's do a double. We've actually used funnels to make sure that it stays in the area we want it in. Oh, this is gonna be cool. I can already tell right now.
That's not a stock color, right?
That is not a stock color. What do you?
It's against a wall.
Yeah. So those of you that watched this last time, what you didn't get to see was we'd forgotten to put borders on the side of our pour pails, or on the side of our board, and it creeped off on us. Though it was cool, it was glued to the plastic.
It was a lot of cleanup.
A lot of cleanup. So once again, the black background. So we've got the black background, and then we've got 4 colors that we've mixed around the outside of it. We're not going to stir it. We're going to try not to disturb it as much as possible, so that when we actually do the pour, the mix is happening on the floor itself. And you can always come back and fill in areas, and you know, you'd be walking around in spikes. And this is probably something you would not generally hit with any gauge rakes or trowels or rollers or anything, because really the artistry is all just coming completely from the way you've poured it and the mix of the material. That's a custom color you have right here.
I'll sell it to you.
I'd buy it. So this is the mixed pour, and you'll see as it continues to flow out, a lot of these, especially this in here, this is really a trademark of the mix. You end up with this really, really kind of cool fish scale look to it. That will start to nurse its way into different areas. I feel like we almost need to spritz this.
Well, I happened to put electric orange in my acetone sprayer.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Electric orange. So there's lots of different ways of adding interest. So like Eli just said, he's put electric orange pigment into the sprayer itself. So you're going to get a little bit of that type of halo out of the spray. It will tint the floor slightly, and if you actually go heavy, maybe go heavy on that bottom corner. Not heavy, be a man. There you go. Now, can you see the electric orange popping out of the black? So there's definitely some stuff that you can really. You need to zoom in on that. I'll zoom in on that for you.
Maybe my favorite one, Troy.
I think it might be.
It's that custom color.
Yeah. So you can see a little bit of that electric orange halo. Sorry, the lights in here aren't fantastic for doing this. But that's the mixed pour. And that's really how that's done. Like I said, you need to play around with the mixes of, excuse me. You need to play around with the mixes and the mix ratios, because it's really important that you figure out the base material, that background, that black material. If you overwhelm with too much black, you're not going to get a lot of blending out of it. If you have too little you just end up with just a lot of color, and you won't end up with that nice look. So any other questions you guys might have right now? Yes, we are 6 feet apart. This is an 8-foot table.
Is that surface build clear? Did you use any thinner?
That was XPL, no thinner.
No thinner. Yeah, so you'll find with XPL doing the metallics, we really like them. Really like them because they hold a little more true to the look. And so I think that you're going to find when you're doing these type of installations that you're going to end up with a lot more crisp lines and a little more pow out of it than you're going to get if you use an epoxy like our surface build clear, or even the SB won't be the same because it's too watery. Where you really need bulk here, you really need thickness.
And neither resin is wrong. It's just picking the resin that is right for the look you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Any other questions? Steve's reading.
How do I set proper owner expectations with the metallics so that I am not reselling it when I'm done?
That's a great question. One thing you need to make very clear is that even with a sample board, you cannot recreate any of these looks. I suggest if you do show them a sample board, take it with you. Do not leave it with them. And a lot of times I've run into contractors who just start selling metallic. The homeowner has gone on to Pinterest and they found about 6 different lists of floors that they want it to look like, and they're all like,
none of them look alike.
They're metallic and stain and polished concrete, and it's just this. You have to be very clear with them that it is every installation is unique. You cannot replicate a look. I wouldn't make any promises of making it look like that. I can use the same colors, but I can't make it look like that. Every contractor has their own design and their own way of doing it, and it'll never look the same.
And I think that one of the things that after a couple of decades in business, people used to laugh at my contract, but there were actually a half a dozen things that I had them initial that this is artistry, and you can pick the colors, and I'm going to apply the colors, and I'm going to apply the colors in such a manner that we've discussed, and I'm going to try and replicate a sample that I already have. And I usually took the sample, but I did one other thing. I usually had them sign the back of it before, and then I held on to that because I've had times where people are like, wow, now that I see it in the whole floor, this is just way yellow or way pink or way blue or way black, whatever way is. And I have that sample and I'd go, in all reality, this is what we've done, and it helps them realize that it is what they bought. The other thing is, like I said before, and this is really, really critical. Yes, I want you to play in your shop. Yes, I want you to really, really understand these products and how they flow out, how they're going to work for you. Their garage floor is going to look like. Maybe their interior floor that doesn't have slope, but I guarantee you, if you make a sample on your flat countertop shop, and then take it to the customer, show it to them, go do their floor. And even with XPL, that's going to run very limited, you're still going to get this feeling of movement towards the fall of the floor. And so if you're going to be doing something like that, throw some plastic down like we've done here today, pour out the sample that they're looking for, let it move the way it's going to move and say it's going to look like that. You cannot control that. I've had people call me and say, hey, they really hate the floor because it moved. What can I do to mitigate that? They don't want that feeling. Can I pour it thicker? Can I pour this? Can I do that? No. I mean, no. You're really stuck with that. So be cautious when you're doing that. It's really important that you stay on top of that type of stuff.
One of the things too, this installation really shouldn't be your first interaction with doing resinous coatings. We really
might be because.
It might be, but don't. I wouldn't suggest going out and selling a really decorative metallic floor and you've never done any resinous coatings.
Yeah, if you want to make money and make money every day, do chips. Number ABC, ABC, ABC over and over and over again. And I'll tell you, there are companies I can think of by name right now that just do chips all day long, every single day. They do the same thing over and over again, and they have little to zero problems in their world. The chip always looks the same. So,
and like you mentioned last time, this is a great way to get their attention, and then try to sell the chip floor.
If you're doing any type of demos or anything that customers are walking by, please don't hang panels of chips. They're just going to go, that's the same thing I've seen at Home Depot or Lowe's or this or that. Hang cool metallics. They'll draw them in like moths. They'll just come walking into your booth. Oh my gosh, I love this. They're probably not going to buy that, but I'm telling you, they will pay you more money they'll pay you more money because you're an artist to do their chip floor than they will a guy that does chip floors. So always bear that in mind.
And the really nice benefit when you're starting out in this, when you show a customer a chip sample, you can make their floor look like that most everywhere, unless you make a mistake. But those are pretty easy to fix with chip as well. And you make a mistake on a metallic, it's a lot harder to fix and blend in and make it look good. Versus 1/4 inch chip, you can get away with a lot and be able to fix it and still make it look nice and function properly.
So true. Hey, so we promised we'd try and keep this to an hour. Well, actually, I think I said 45 minutes to an hour. So we're at an hour and 2, but we started late. So that means that we're still at an hour. Perfect. So I'm going to go with that. If there aren't any more questions, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day. Thank you.